So welcome everybody to the update on Alma and Primo V release schedule. I see there's a lot of interest here. We're at 152 participants, 154 already, and growing. So what do we have today? A few resources, which you've probably already seen. This is the most recent announcement. It's no longer so recent, actually, but this is an announcement, a built-in announcement that we have, a fairly new method inside Alma of notifying the institutions of various news. So here we've got an explanation. And also the frequently asked questions page. I'm going to send out this link to everybody in the chat right now, just so everybody has it, all attendees. And you've all got that. And we have with us today Asaf Klein, the Vice President of Product Management, Resource Management. And we also have with us Yisrael Kuchar, Senior Director of Product Management, Discovery, and Delivery Solutions. And I'm going to be turning this over to Asaf and Yisrael. They're going to be going through the various questions which may come up, an explanation of why this change is taking place. Once again, send in any questions or comments you may have in the chat, and we'll take care of them. And Asaf, Yisrael, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you very much, Yoel.
One moment, please. Okay, Asaf, take it away.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
199 attendees we're at right now.
Excellent. Okay, so glad to be here. Good morning, good afternoon. Yisrael and I are here to talk to you about changes that are planned for the Alma and Primo V release schedule. First, I want to start with the background. So why are we doing this change? And really, this is something that came up from our conversations that we've been having with libraries in different occasions, interviews that we have, for instance, part of ongoing calls or working with the working groups or focus groups. This is something that has come up quite a lot, and that while the changes, the rollout of new capabilities is a good thing, this could be a challenge to libraries to be able to really deal with them on an ongoing basis and understand them, and this can be a burden. So we needed to find, together with the community, a better way to both to balance the overall overheads as the releases cause versus the rollout of features, because we understand and we work on providing you those things that you need. It's important that we are agile, that you can receive things in a timely manner, and so we needed to find a better balance. And so over the last year, we've been working with the, and discussing this with the community, the steering committee of the two user groups, as well as the product working groups for Alma and Primo, to talk to them about this change and what the implications of this are. And so this is why we're having this webinar as well.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about what we're doing. So the change is going to be that for Alma and Primo V, we're going to be moving to quarterly feature releases. We're still going to have bug fixes and performance issues resolved on a monthly basis. So we're still going to have a monthly release, but the content of this release is going to be changing. So every month you'll be getting a release. Again, we'll run you through a few more of the details on what it's going to look like over the next few slides. We'll still have the monthly release. The first and second months will have bug fixes and different areas and improvements. And features will come in once a quarter in a quarterly release. Now, this is going to be happening for Alma and Primo V. Other higher ed platform products will remain as they are today, with a monthly release that includes both features and bug fixes. Asaf, over to you.
Thanks, Israel. So I mentioned this, but I do want to talk about this a little bit more. Is there's this change has a couple benefits, and we talked about the overhead, meaning that when the feature's coming out on a quarterly basis, this is inherently has less overheads, that you don't have to sort of deal with them, read the release notes on a monthly basis, think about them. Rather, that can be done quarterly, so every 3 months. But in addition, this allows us to work on features and enhancements over a period of 3 months. So we continue to work at the same pace as before, but really sort of package them into something that's more complete, that has a more sort of like end-to-end workflow, instead of releasing things in pieces over multiple months. So we think this also has benefit. And because we have these 3 months, and we'll talk more about this, we plan also to provide more a sort of sneak peek and look ahead earlier in the 3 months, in order that you'll be able to prepare and start researching those type of changes that will be coming in the quarterly release in a much earlier time frame.
Okay, so when is this change going to happen? So for the next few months and up until May, nothing is changing. You'll continue to get the monthly release as you know it, with features and fixes as we're used to. May is going to be the last one of that type. From May, we're going into this quarterly mode. So the next feature release after May is going to be the August release. Between May and August, again, we're going to have the monthly release, which is going to be including the features. Asaf, if you just go one slide ahead, thank you. So this is roughly what the schedule is going to look like. Again, we'll discuss about what you'll see in the official documentation and then the release schedule. But from May up until May, everything continues as you're used to. June and July are going to be the first releases that are going to be only bug fixes, again, for Alma and Primo V, with August being the first quarterly feature release, followed again by 2 months of bug fixes. And again, the next quarterly feature release will be November, and so on. Back to you, Asaf.
Yeah, so this will, if we go into a little bit more detail about that transition period, is, as Israel mentioned, May will be a regular release, a monthly release with both fixes, bug fixes, and features. And then June will be the first month where it's just bug fixes. But please note that the release will be available in the sandbox like usual 2 months beforehand. There will be release notes for this release. It'll focus on the resolved issues and not on features, but there will be release notes for each one of these releases. Sometime during June, we plan to have a sneak peek where we'll provide you details about what's coming out in the August release and the quarterly feature release. So this sort of extends the time and gives you more time to evaluate these new capabilities and plan on how you want to incorporate them into your workflows and procedures. That'll continue, of course, in July. It'll be, again, in Alma and Primo, focused on bug fixes and performance improvements. And then finally, August will be the first quarterly feature release. We wanted to take this opportunity to go through some of the questions that we have in our FAQ and provide maybe some additional clarity around them. And we'll start with what this change means for those customers who not only have Alma and Primo, but they might have another one. So for instance, Leganto. So as we earlier mentioned, Leganto, Rapido, Rialto, Esploro, these stay on the monthly release where it's both features and bug fixes. So if in June, for example, you'll see the system will be updated. Alma and Primo will be deployed with bug fixes, and Leganto will have features and bug fixes. Okay, so those products, the Alma and Primo, will be the features, the new capabilities will be released quarterly. Leganto and the others, you'll see new things coming along, like today, every month. Okay, you'll see the updates in the login page. The release month will change, so you'll see ongoing updates for all the products. It's really just about what is being deployed in that release, which will change to a certain degree for Alma and Primo. I do want to clarify that the Primo back office, meaning not Primo VE, Primo back office, this is already on a quarter release. It's on this. It's actually on that same release schedule for the quarterly release that Alma and Primo are shifting over to. So no change there.
Okay. So will this change the release cycle affect the monthly corrections and bug fixes? I think we've answered this already. Again, we're going to continue having monthly releases. The monthly releases, when not a quarterly feature release, will include bug fixes. We're not slowing down the developments, and we'll deploy the bug fixes in the same speed and cadence as before.
Does this mean that we're slowing the pace of development? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are not slowing our pace of innovation. We're not slowing the capabilities, the features that we are developing. We continue to develop on this monthly basis. We're just packaging them so they will come out quarterly. This is about the cadence of it being released, not the investment, not the effort being put into the system. That continues at the same level that we've been doing it year over year.
Okay, a question about notification. Will customers continue receiving emails about new releases? The answer is yes. We'll continue sending out emails. There will be release notes, again, for both the monthly and the quarterly releases. Again, just the content of them is going to be changing. What Yoel showed at the beginning of the session, there is a new announcement tool within Alma. So the releases are going to be announced within Alma as well in the announcement section of the application.
And also, are we planning any changes in how the sandbox releases are managed? And no, they actually stay the same. Again, our cycle continues, our sprint continues to be monthly. The production environment is updated monthly. The sandbox is also updated, but 2 weeks before the production. So for instance, in those releases of Alma and Primo, which are focused on bug fixes, the sandbox environment 2 weeks ahead of the production, you'll see those fixes deployed there. And 2 weeks before the quarterly feature release, you'll see them in the sandbox.
Okay, how will Exlibris help libraries learn and prepare for the quarterly feature release? This is a great question. And basically, as Asaf showed in the timeline, we're going to be giving information a lot more in advance for the features coming up. So if before you got the release notes close to when this came out in production or in sandbox and then production, already in the months before building up to the quarterly release, we will be sharing information about what's coming, sharing materials, training, perhaps, again, depending on the content, obviously, and sneak peek materials, to really understand and help sites understand what's coming in that quarterly feature release that's coming up. In addition, just something to note is that the standard deployment method is really based on an opt-in approach for wherever we can. So again, there's no change to existing functionality in most cases, definitely not in big major areas. And even if an institution hasn't had the chance to read up on all the features that have come up in the quarterly release, they can choose not to opt into these features on day one of the release. And again, once already on production, within that release, read up on those features that they wanted to postpone and activate them when they're ready as well.
What you see here is the upcoming changes to the release schedule. And just to note that the dates are not changing. And so the dates that you've already seen through the end of 2022, they stay the same. Really just what changes for Alma and Primo VE are the contents of that release. So the release type in June, which comes out June 5th, it will be for those resolved issues, so the bug fixes. And in August, which is on August 7th, it will be the quarterly release with all the features and the resolved issues for that month. So the dates haven't changed. It's just really about what is coming out in that month. We plan to update the Knowledge Center and the release schedule that is there soon. So you'll have that handy. And also, of course, the release schedule that is available from within Alma will also be updated with this new release schedule. And of course, there'll be an equivalent release schedule for the other products that are staying on their monthly release. So Leganto, Rialto, Rapido, and Esploro. Just to sort of summarize the changes on the Hired platform, what you can see here is, as we've talked about, Alma and Primo will have monthly corrections and fixes as part of the monthly cycle, but the features will be aggregated and packaged into the quarterly feature releases. All the other products stay the same, like today, monthly releases with bug fixes as well as features. Okay, that's what we had to share. Let's see if there are any questions.
One person states, asks, although I believe this was answered after he or she asked it, he or she states, sorry, missed the date this goes into effect. Let's repeat it anyway, Asaf, just to make sure we're covered.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so this goes into effect after the May release, meaning that the June and July releases of Alma and Primo VE will be restricted or contain bug fixes and performance improvements. They will not include new features. August will be the quarterly feature release, first quarterly feature release, and it will contain the features that will have been developed over the previous months.
Okay, somebody else asks, can you give examples of future quarterly updates that will be featured, in parentheses, that would not have been able to be featured in monthly updates?
Okay, so features can be deployed in different ways, and we've been doing this. We've been doing this for many years. Is that features can be deployed in parts. We try and not try. We deploy them in complete parts, but sometimes over a matter of months, they then become a more extensive or bigger sort of feature or workflow. And so really it's about, instead of releasing these in parts, those sort of complete parts, we will release it in a quarterly release, and it'll be sort of larger, more extensive, more complete in that sense. So it doesn't change how we choose what is deployed or not. It's really just a different mechanism for packaging them and releasing them.
Okay. Another person asks, will the quarterly releases have any effect on semi-annual reindexing, e.g., new fields added for repository searching, but requiring reindexing for the entire institution zone?
Okay, it's a good question. No, actually, the schedule aligns today with how we release and how we do the indexing, the semi-annual indexing, where they become available for Alma and Primo in August and in February. and these are the same dates where we have the quarterly feature or some of the quarterly feature releases. So it doesn't change that.
Okay. Another one. Do you believe this new schedule change will result in fewer regression problems? Does this beef up the pre-release testing?
We continue with the same level of testing for all we're doing. We continue to expand our regression testing, our overall testing as well. So this doesn't change our approach. We're not reducing, rather we actually plan to do more. So our target is to not increase. We're sort of cautiously optimistic that there's potential here to reduce regressions, but definitely our ongoing investment in testing and QA and the number of testing that we do continues apace, and we extend our coverage from month to month.
Okay, the next question is more or less a repeat of that previous question from a different person, but I'll read it anyway. He or she asks, is the idea also that updates are more thoroughly tested this way, which would avoid some of the negative consequences?
Sort of hard for me to answer that without a specific example, but again, we test the features extensively on different points along the cycle. Many of the sort of larger ones are actually tested with early access. These methods will not change. We appreciate very much the work that we do with our focus groups and our working groups to evaluate features before they go out for general availability. And so, our approach here is really to test the new features as exhaustively as we can before they're released. Israel, if you want to add anything else.
I mean, I would say that again, the methods aren't changing, but yes, they're, the theory is, again, if we are holding now features and not releasing them, they will be tested with additional features, in the neighborhood. So again, to say that this is fail-proof, obviously not, but again, it is QA efforts will continue and are robust and continue to be robust. And yes, we're also looking at ways to make this even better with the new methods as well as we go.
Okay, I think that answers both of those questions. We got another one here. How much earlier than the feature release comes out on production will the feature release appear on the sandbox?
It'll be 2 weeks before.
Okay, just like today, right? 2 weeks before.
Yep.
Another one, does it mean an opportunity to review ideas exchange more clearly as a package of related things?
That's a good question. This is something that we'll need to think about how to perhaps aggregate ideas. Thank you for that suggestion.
Another one, does this mean revisions to the roadmap highlights a little I'm going to slightly reword it because I think it was, does this mean revisions to the roadmap highlights will be a little more clear, more realistic on quarterly timings?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So our current plans are to stay within the updates that are based on a half year, so 6 months ahead, and then 7 to 12 months, and then 12 to 24. I think we'll evaluate if that needs a change in the future, but that is our plan to date, this will stay pretty much like it is today. Yes, there will be 2 feature releases every 6 months, and we'll need to plan how we roll those roadmap highlights into those specific quarterly releases.
Okay. Does this impact the way NIR's enhancements and/or ideas exchange ideas get selected and developed?
I wouldn't say that necessarily changes. Again, the development cycles that are happening are the same development cycles. We select the features and functionalities that are developed from all the sources, whether nurse enhancements, ideas exchange, or other things that we have different ideas and communication with some of you, and they go into development. Some developments, go in within a month, but will be released in the quarterly release. Some are larger developments that will span a few months and be released in that quarterly release. So it doesn't change how we develop or what we select to be developed.
Right.
Only how it is then packaged and made public.
Right. I'll just add here about NARES. So we actually talked to the product working group about this change, and we are doing every effort on our side that this round of NARES requests will be completed for the May release and not the June release. This is what we're trying to do, and we discussed with the product working group about perhaps thinking about how we can slightly shift the cycle so it better aligns with the August, November, February, and May cycle. That'll something I think we'll finalize for the next round. But for this round, we are endeavoring to get everything into the May release. That's our current plan.
Okay, someone asks, can you add the information of the quarterly dates in the Alma release schedule link in the help icon in Alma? For now, it is not updated.
That is correct. It is not yet updated. We plan to update this soon after these webinars. It'll first appear in the Knowledge Center and then later from the link in Alma. So stay tuned for that update.
Okay. Another interesting one. He or she writes, will there be system downtime for the release? Will it be longer than 1 to 4 hours now? We like to let our community know of the downtimes ahead of time so they can plan their research accordingly.
Okay, so no, we do not plan changes to the length of the downtime. We really try to make this as short as possible in the sort of deep night definition we have, so as little interruption as possible. So our plans are to keep things the same, late for the monthly release.
Okay, another one which I believe was answered via different questions, but I'll read it anyway. He or she writes, will this new schedule help you do more thorough testing of new features before you release them? We often find new features don't work as described in release notes.
I think we answered this a few times.
Yeah.
Again, the plan is to continue and invest and increase investment in the quality and the QA of the features, whether quarterly or monthly releases. And yes, there are strategies around how to do this in the quarterly, which will help us here as well.
Okay, this one seems more of a comment than a question. He or she writes, I also wanted to echo the statement you made about new features being opt-in. Sometimes in the monthly feature releases, features are either opt-out or simply deployed with no chance to disable it. We like to be able to test and decide if we want to adopt a feature and to test to make sure it works and works for us.
No, it makes sense. I appreciate the statement. I think we very much try, and the method for most cases that we try to apply is opt-in. There are areas which are more complicated to do opt-in, where something you cannot have two flavors up and live. Again, obviously it depends on that area of functionality, but I completely agree with the sentiment of having as much opt-in as we can and let the institution decide whether they want it or not.
Agree.
Okay, another one. How far in advance of each quarterly release will the release notes and sneak peek be available?
Okay, so regarding the sneak peek, we plan to move that into sort of midway, so a month and a half, more or less, ahead of time. And the full release notes will be available together with the sandbox update 2 weeks beforehand.
Okay, I think that's all of them. If I missed anybody's question or comment, I'm checking both the chat and the Q&A. If I missed anything, you can send it in again, but I think I got them all. Anybody want to send into the chat any final question or comment? Nope, I don't see anything coming in. Okay, thank you, Asaf. Thank you, Yisrael, for taking time out of your very busy schedules. We will be posting the recording of this, and a notification will go out. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.